Welcome to bexbugoutsurvivor, and a little while ago we looked at a ridgeline and a way of tightening it on a prusik, and briefly we touched on another prusik I use for the actual top itself to move it left to right if that's the kind of thing you like to do. Not always do I. Sometimes I just have a mono line, sometimes I have twin lines. It all depends, but for the system I'm building up now requires a ridge line, and it's a mono line, and it is for an underquilt. And if you are a hammocker and you often use underquilts, this is a way of getting underquilt lift while you're out in the wet and the cold. If you're an old hat with bexbugoutsurvivor, you'll know that I actually like to modify kit. I like to find different techniques of doing things a little differently to see if it can be improved or not. And that's exactly what we're doing with an underquilt for a hammock and the actual ridge line itself. Now this is a prototype, so it's not going to look like this at the end. Mine has an array of gadgetry here with different hooks and clips and loops, and it's these that the underquilt will be fitted to rather than the hammock. All I have to do is unravel this and put it tree to tree, this prototype ridge line. This is the toddle system I use for the second tie out at the tree, so everything goes up really fast. Now this is only the prototype. The original is similar to a Dyneema, but I think I've bought something that is a clone of Zingit, it's called, and I've got a clone version of it and it tangles like hell. But let's get this system up. The idea we looked at not so long ago was this system to go around the tree, the second tree, and it's a prusik on a toddle really. Along the line are a series of loops, and some have little gadgets on like baby mitten hooks, some are just prusiks, and this would be for my top. This can come off and eventually will be replaced by NAMA claws. Ordinarily, the underquilt is snapped onto the end of the hammock, and you have to have lateral stretch to get elevation, where I really want the elevation for my underquilt going vertical, which is why I'm connecting mine to a ridge line. Yeah, that is the underquilt on to the ridge line on this here. Now don't worry about this on a hook, we'll come to that in a minute, so we discount that for the time being, and we'll move this one along here ready to accept an underquilt. We need to put another 4-wrap prusik, and that goes to the head end like this. Let's bring this all the way down to the end here. And I have brought with me my underquilt, which has carabiner head and foot, and it is just a case of clipping it in. Now this can be done with synthetic underquilts, and if you have a down quilt. Mine down quilts need to be pushed hard up against your body because the outer shell is a lot larger than the inner shell, so it doesn't matter how tight you get that, the feathers will always insulate, as where a synthetic is sandwiched between two layers, just like a sleeping bag. And that you need an air gap, so the way you adjust the gap is by stretching your quilt on the ridge line. So I'm going to dive in the old pack and get out an underquilt. and mine is the Goose Down underquilt. And that is all without the actual hammock going up. The hammock would be secondary to this. We'd put the hammock up next. Mitten hook, I can slide that along here, and one of the channel lines can clip into that. Now it won't come off my shoulder, and the same with my foot as well. So I've only got my ridge line at neck level, about there. It's just easier to film. Obviously I'd be a lot higher up in reality. So I'm going to see if I can just put up the hammock. I get the hammock, I lay it in the actual underquilt itself. It comes out of the end of the underquilt and then attach to the usual manner onto the tree here. But I'm just saying, it's worked for me. I think it's a lovely little hack to get much better lift. So at the moment I have a down underquilt that's hanging low, so it wouldn't work, and it needs to be closer to the hammock. I could either loosen the hammock or raise the underquilt, and to raise the underquilt I just slide the Thnx, and this obviously works better the higher that your ridge line is, and it's just set too low, but like I said, it's just easier for filming. So I come to the ridge line and just move it along a little. Now that is where you'd usually put your underquilt. Mine is up here. We can move this along also, and that raises it. Did you see that raise there? That should be ample enough. Maybe a little more, and as I pull it comes up. Even my secondary suspension for the actual underquilt is on a Thnx. I pretty much use them for everything, so the quilt isn't going anywhere, that stays in place. If I wanted it to, I could move it up the elastic line, but you can see it is independently set now. Let's have a quick look around. A lovely little setup, I think. Now I've only bought my short little hammock out just for, again, for convenience of filming. In the first video we saw a toddle system to connect to the second tree here. We also saw a pretty standard way here of connecting a tarp. Now mine originally had a toddle on. It doesn't need it, just a knot on the end, and the friction will keep your tarp taut. I'm going to have to move some of these things here, such as this little mitten hook, and put that onto a dyneema line. And a well-earned brew as well for me. And while that boils, I'll just go into my tarp here. You can see I have my lightweight titanium tent stakes, but this is what we're looking at. This is meant to be like a Zingit line, and the orange is 2.0 and I think the green is 1.75 mil. Now it's a lot softer and pliable, genuine Zingit like this. I can make a coil loop like that and it falls out. You can see, just give it a twist and it comes out. With this I'm not impressed at all. It kind of holds its bend, and that's what is making this tangle. And I'm going to swap out with genuine Zingit line. That coffee's should be ready now. May as well put it all in. This is instant coffee today. I usually have fresh grounds. Costa Instant, the best stove I've ever made. It's not pressurised and the flames come out the side there. There's a how-to on that. I would really recommend you learn how to make one of them. Oh, it's nice. This is for the underquilt itself. Just a simple little prusik. I'll have him off and put that on the lightweight line. I don't need to transfer formally what the tarp was on, so that saved a bit of volume. I don't need to transfer the secondary tie out, and then I have the other two prusiks which have a mitten hook on, so I might transfer that, but in the palm of my hand that's nothing. And take the other one off and transfer that to my lightweight line here. The order I need to do this is the prusik, then the mitten hook, then another mitten hook, and then a prusik. I might actually do it in the Zingit eventually, but just for today, let's transfer some gear over to the lightweight line. So initially it looks like there's a lot to take in, but really it's only a prusik on a ridgeline, and then I'm clipping the underquilt directly into that and not the hammock. If you try it, you're going to be very impressed. It does mean, however, that the ridgeline is inside the tarp, with you, meaning that the tarp sits on top of the ridgeline. We'll figure it out as we go along. I shall see you next time when we shall have a proper look at this, and I'll see you out there. Happy trails.